Island Claws is a 1980 horror film from director Hernan Cardenas. The movie opens in a beach in Florida. The crabs are getting their groove on to some smooth jazz.
Get that camera out of my face. I'll fight you.
We cut to the early days of Bubba Gump Shrimp. Over at the National Marine Biology Institute, Dr. McNeil is working on a way to increase the maturity rate of various crustaceans. Lynn's working with McNeil to speed up the growth of crabs as a way to end world hunger. I just said it and I still don't believe it. Jan's a photojournalist who wants to do an article on his research.
Well, then I can do the story?
Yes, on one condition.
Please don't say dinner. Please don't say dinner.
Well, I'd like to have final approval of your material.
Oh, thank God. He introduces Jan to his other assistant, Pete. Jan stops in the lab to get some coffee, just long enough to get a nice chunk of exposition.
At 6 this morning, a full alert went into effect here at the power plant. All indications were that a nuclear accident had taken place.
Lynn takes Jan outside to show her the crab tanks. Pete explains to Jan the method for increasing the maturity rate of crabs.
How's that done?
Really, the fact of the matter is, it's just warm water.
I don't believe it either, but after looking into it, there seems to be something to this. Learn something new every day. The three decide to talk down by the beach. They're talking about how the local power plant has been dumping waste into the water.
There are no contaminants in those discharges.
Yeah, that's what Charlie Sheen said. Jan informs them her father is the head of the plant and would never allow waste to get in the water.
46,000 gallons of radioactive water was spilled onto the floor.
Oops. Jan goes to see her dad, who doesn't seem to be too upset by the incident. She then tells him about the boys she met today. Her father begins to act just a bit suspicious.
Adams? Pete Adams?
Yeah, do you know him?
Nope, never heard that name before in my life. Nope. Extended crab footage.
Hey, this is our spot. Go on, get out of here.
Pete stops at the local bar. Both of his parents died when he was younger, so he was raised by Moody and Rosie. Moody chases his dog Trouble out of the bar.
Did you leave any food out for him? He just scoffed up a bunch of koizois. Yeah.
He just scarfed up a bunch of koizois? This being a fishing town, they engage in the ancient art of hermit crab racing. Is it me or is this guy channeling Ernest Borgnine? I understand there's some heroes in here. Pete tells Moody and Rosie about Jan. Seems there was something definitely suspicious here, too. Moody doesn't want to talk about it, which makes him, moody. The bar closes and everyone heads home. Moody's walking home and finds Coy passed out. On another part of the beach, some Haitian refugees are sneaking into the U.S. They hide in the woods to avoid the INS. Amos goes back home, which is a bus. He's trying to relax, but is invaded by angry crabs.
I want to pinch.
He knocks over his oil lamp and sets the place on fire.
Maybe little pinch.
Then his bus gets pushed over by something. Whatever it is, it's roaring. The next day, Moody is really hungover. Pete decides to start the day off by oiling himself. Pete yells at Moody until he tells him about Jan's father. Turns out Jan's father was drunk driving and accidentally killed Pete's parents. Dr. McNeil's talking to Jan about the crabs. Jan goes to leave, but runs into Pete.
My only problem was the crabs.
I'm sorry?
They itch so bad. She's biking through the woods when, from out of nowhere, full crab assault.
Hello, lab. Hi, what's up?
I was just hijacked by crabs. Pete goes to pick her up, and now the crabs are all gone. They search the area and find an enormous crab shell. The crabs are returning, so they get out of there. Pete shows the shell to the doctor. They don't seem to be too worried that there's a giant crab out there. That night, Pete takes Jan to meet Moody and Rosie.
What happened to your arm, honey?
I was run off the road by a bushel of crabs. Moody seems to act with his eyebrows. That night, they go on a double date with Lynn and her boyfriend Chuck. Chuck takes this opportunity to propose and, oh no. Lynn tells Chuck she wants to walk back home. I'll bet the crabs are happy to hear that. Lynn runs and is ambushed by, you guessed it.
Hey, remember us? You ate hundreds of my brothers.
She managed to escape, but thankfully the group rescues her and takes her to the hospital. She has dozens of claw-shaped lacerations on her arms. Don't know what could have caused it, though. Couldn't be crabs. Moody's talking to Joe about Amos. Joe thinks that the Haitians killed them. Pete checks out Amos's bus and finds dead crabs all over. I love how passionately this dog's barking at the truck. And as soon as it stops, it's like, well, my job's finished. This Haitian is sneaking around like me in every stealth action game. Trouble saves one of the young refugees from the crabs. Pete explains how they're getting the crabs to continuously grow.
What I'm doing is injecting various formulas of growth hormone into the crab.
Wait, so it wasn't just the warm water at all? It's growth hormones. Brilliant idea! Next, let's make hyper-intelligent sharks. I guess Trouble lost the fight with the crabs. Moody goes to take him to the vet, but he doesn't make it. Uh-oh, crabs. Now it's personal. Joe insists it was the Haitians, so he gathers up a mob to flush them out. The Dr. Pete and Jan all visit Lynn in the hospital.
Can you remember if she said crab or crabs?
I'm sorry, I can't.
Did she make crab claw motions with her hands? They realize that this has to be the work of a giant crab. Okay, here's what we do. Jan, you go to the store and buy seafood crackers. Dr. McNeil, you get 47 gallons of melted butter. I'll go fill a swimming pool with boiling water and lure the crab into it. The trio return to town, but the crabs have been messing the place up while they were gone.
I know what this looks like, but I assure you it wasn't us.
Pete, if you have to go, there's a bathroom right over there. The Haitians find Moody and ask for his help. The girl who was attacked by the crabs is unconscious. They all head to Moody's house. Pete and Jan stop at the house. Oh no! They're attacked by the super mega ultra crab.
Moody, are you all right?
No! We've got a house on us! Moody hears Pete and the group rescues him and Jan. The mob gives up looking for the Haitians and goes to the bar. They get there to find the Haitians! Pete explains what happens and they go to take the girl to the hospital. Well, everything should be okay now. Oh my god!
So here's this giant enemy crab, and you attack its weak point for massive damage.
McNeil shows up and dies. The crab kills Charlie. Moody rides it like a bucking bronco. Pete jumps on the head and stabs the eyes, which manages to kill it. So the big one's dead, but what about all the little ones? And who's to say this is the only big one? And on that night, Crabfest was born. The movie was mostly shot on location in Florida for a rumored $3.5 million. It was written by Rico Browning and Jack Cowden, the creators of the popular show Flipper. In 1973, Browning wrote and directed the movie Salty, about a friendly sea lion. When they made the film, they found a small area in Florida where they built a shack and a dock for use in the movie. After filming, the town let them leave the construction rather than tear it down. Over the years, a few other films were made there, and each added a new building, which turned it into a small town. One day, Browning got a call from production manager Ted Swanson. Swanson told him there were two brothers who had never made a film before, but they had an idea for one and wanted to know if he would write it. The idea was about killer crabs attacking a small fishing town. Browning liked the idea and agreed to write it with Jack Cowden. Since they needed a fishing town, it was suggested they use the one Browning worked on with Salty. The special effects were by Glenn Robinson, who worked on Earthquake, Logan's Run, and Hurricane. He was also the guy who built King Kong in the 1976 remake. The giant crab at the end was supposed to be able to move around more, but unfortunately it never worked fully as intended. That's why at the end it's just standing there and everyone's moving around it. The claws were the only thing that they could get to move. The movie was a flop and the brothers never worked on another movie again. In 1976, Guy and Smith worked on a book called Night of the Crabs, about a group of giant crabs attacking the Welsh coast. By 1979, Smith reached the third book in the series. It's unclear as to whether or not the producers were inspired by this, or if it's just a coincidence. They are too similar, and the idea of giant monsters was popular at the time. There had already been movies about giant rats, giant snakes, giant spiders, so they may have just thought it would be smart to do a giant crab movie before somebody else did. Island Claws has the look of a film from 1980, with the feel of a movie from 1950. It's got the mix of an unusual monster, with a healthy dose of nuclear power paranoia. Although it's never fully explained if the killer crabs were a product of the nuclear spillage, or the growth hormone, or a combination of both. I love movies like this. They take themselves just seriously enough to be entertaining. When I see a film about giant killer crabs, I don't want a message. I want giant killer crabs. And for that, this movie delivers. Oh, and by the way, there's 8 books in the Night of the Crab series. So I guess there is a pretty untapped market for killer crabs.
you so mad at?
I'm mad because you scared the hell out of me. That's why I'm mad, Coy.
You remind me of my wife. You could turn a man to drink.
You drank before you ever had a wife, Coy.
I was lonely then.